All right, let's take a look at number 27. Evaluate each geometric series described. So the first thing we need to do here is look at the formula we're going to use. So we want to find the sum of the infinite series. So our formula that we use is our first term over 1 minus our ratio. So remember, to find our ratio, two ways to think about it. First one is to put the second term over the first term. So if I put the second term over the first, I get 1/4 over 1/2. And so the top stays, the bottom moves. And so I get 1/4, the top stays. So 1 times 4 is 4. And this 2 goes to the top. And so 1 times 2 gives us 2, which equals 1/2. Or you can look at this and say, well, since it's geometric, we're going to multiply. So 1 times what gives me 1? And so that'd have to be 1. Now look at the bottom. 2 times what gives me 4? And that would have to be 2. So it's 1/2. And then try it again. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 4 is 8. And so that means our fraction is 1/2. Now you can also do this in the calculator. 1/4 divide by 1/2. So there's lots of different ways to get that ratio of 1/2. All right, so our first term is given to us as 1/2. So it's going to be 1/2. And then 1 minus our ratio of 1/2. So on top, we'll leave it as a half for now. And then 1 minus a half is just a half. And since 1/2 over 1/2, they're the same, our 1/2 divided by 1/2 is just 1. So that means that if you were to add up all these numbers following this series that goes to infinity, the sum would be 1. All right, here's an extra example, like the last one we just did. So we're going to find the sum of the infinite geometric series. So here's our formula. So again, we need to find our ratio. And so on your calculator, you can just do 2/5 divided by 8/5. And another way to write this would be 2/5 divided by 8/5. And remember, when you divide with fractions, you multiply by the reciprocal. So this would be 2/5 times 5/8. And here the 5s would cancel. And so you'd get 2/8, which would equal 1/4. And you could get the same thing over here if you notice that these would cancel, and you get 2 over 8, which would also equal 1/4. So now when you plug it in, we know our first term is 8/5. Our ratio is 1/4. So 1 minus 1/4 gives us 3/4. And I'll do this problem just like we did this one. So we're going to rewrite this as 8/5 divided by 3/4. Multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, nothing's going to cancel here. So now just multiply across. And we get 32 over 15. All right, let's take a look at 29. Here it's given in summation notation, which actually is easier. So same formula, our first term over 1 minus our ratio. And so what you need to realize is that this number is always going to be our first term. And if you don't see that, it's not a big deal. Just plug 1 in here. So 1 minus 1 becomes 0. And anything to the 0 power is 1. And so 2 times 1 gives us 2. So the number in front is going to be our first term. Now we can plug that in. First term. And now the number inside the parentheses is going to be our ratio. So now 1 minus 1/3. And so 1 minus 1/3 is 2/3. And so now 2 divided by 2/3 becomes put over 1. The 2's cancel. And this becomes just 3 over 1, which is just equal to 3. So our sum is 3. All right, so here's another example. Same formula. So the number in front is our first term. And then you should pause the video and try this one on your own, and then come back and check your answer, see if you got it. The number here is our ratio. So now we're just plugging it in, seeing what we get. So we get 24 over 1/2. This becomes 24 divided by 1/2. When you multiply by the reciprocal, it just becomes 24 times 2, which is equal to 48.